This video contains spoilers for the featured film. All images used belong to their respective copyright owners and are used here for commentary and criticism purposes only. Please remember that statements made are my own opinion and you are free to disagree in the comments, but please do so respectfully. Hey there, Alley Cats, and welcome back to Movie Monday. Today, we're going to be reviewing and discussing Shark Night 3D, a horror movie released in 2011. Surprisingly, unlike similar shark movies, this one isn't actually considered a B movie because it did get a theatrical release as opposed to going straight to DVD or airing solely on television. You can already tell by the title, this one is going to be interesting. If you'd like to skip the plot overview and get right to my thoughts on the movie, you can skip to this timestamp in the video. So with that said, let's get right into it. Immediately, this movie doesn't give the best first impression with close-up bikini shots, a fake-out jump scare, and a topless soon-to-be damsel in distress all within the first minute. For the real shark attack with a thresher shark, it looks like they're trying really hard to mimic the opening scene in Jaws, which is a bit bothersome. I mean, I get it. Obviously, Jaws is the superior shark movie, but attempting to copy it is the laziest of lazy writing, and it's just insulting to the original. But I digress. Everything's all happy when we meet our quirky group of characters whose stereotypes are almost painful. There's video game nerd Gordon, who unironically uses words like pwn, diligent medical student Nick, who overworks himself far too much, tough football player Malik, who is dating snobby preppy girl Maya, blockheaded skater dude Blake, who spray tans his junk, edgy punk girl Beth, who brags about being a floozy, and wholesome leading lady Sarah, who is the ultimate Mary Sue. Of the characters we meet here, it's honestly Sarah's dog who is the most likable out of all of them, and they're all heading to Sarah's family's lake house, which has no cell phone reception. That'll come in real handy to the plot later. Coincidentally, on the way, they run into Sarah's creepy ex-boyfriend Dennis and his racist alcoholic redneck friend Red, who are, of course, the main antagonists of this movie. Then, as if we didn't already have enough bland characters to keep track of, we meet the sheriff, who definitely won't betray the college group by working with the bad guys later. Totally, definitely not. Then we have an annoying montage alternating between the partying college kids to force tension with suspenseful music near the water, giving the impression something is about to happen, but it's just more lame fake-outs. But finally, we get to actually see part of a shark fin when Malik is water skiing and gets his arm bitten off, but the genius college students assume it's some freak accident and in no way shark-related. But they're super lucky one of them just happens to be a med student, so Nick springs into action and finds his dismembered arm in the water, which for some reason isn't inside the stomach of a shark, and they can finally see the shark for themselves. But just the darndest luck, when they try to go for the mainland, the boat is attacked, and go figure, the first character to die is the snobby preppy girl. But even though they act like it's so sad, we don't really know these characters outside of their stereotypical personality traits, so it doesn't mean much as a viewer. And because we just can't have 3D in the title without something being flung towards the screen at the audience, the boat goes all haywire and rams into a bunch of gas tanks with a huge explosion that the characters avoid at just the last second. Dennis and Red randomly show up on this massive lake and take Beth and Gordon to get help, but whoa, surprise! They're the bad guys who put the sharks in the lake. So they force Gordon into the water to be eaten by a bull shark, and they feed Beth to a bunch of cookie cutter sharks, which is actually kind of a cool scene if I'm being honest. At this point, Malik, Sans right arm, who was previously too weak to even be moved, now suddenly has enough strength to go after the sharks in the lake with a harpoon. He manages to kill a hammerhead that actually growls, just ugh. They find a camera strapped to its belly, and Malik is right back to being on death's door, so Blake attempts to take him to the mainland on a jet ski, but they don't get very far when Malik sacrifices himself by jumping in the water, which just... Dude, you were the reason they're out on the water in the first place instead of back at the lake house. What the heck are you doing? Anyways, Blake gets a little farther just to be eaten by a great white jumping out of the water and snatching him right off the jet ski. Back at the lake house, Mr. Sheriff arrives with some soup for Sarah and Nick, the latter of whom mysteriously passes out just before Sarah overhears a radio call from Dennis about what they did to Beth, and she realizes that the sheriff is a bad guy too? No way. I totally didn't see that coming. They take Sarah on the boat and toss her in a diving cage, and the redneck asshole throws the dog into the shark-infested water. What? Man, they're really going out of the way to make us hate this douche face. In the meantime, Sheriff does the typical cliche bad guy revealing their entire master plan to a tied-up Nick while they're chilling on land, and say they were inspired by Shark Week on the Discovery Channel, so they're filming real shark attacks to sell to the more hardcore viewers. I've heard some pretty outrageous villain plans, but oh my god, this one is extra silly and ridiculous. Sarah suddenly realizes that she hasn't really done anything during the whole movie, so she pulls some serious Mary Sue tropes and pretends to be all loving with Dennis to grab his gun, but she fluffs it up within 30 seconds and he grabs it right back. Damn it, Sarah, be more useful. Sheriff is having some fun dunking Nick in a tank of sand tiger sharks and rambling on about their flawless plan when Nick breaks his restraints with a Zippo lighter that magically still works perfectly fine after being fully submerged in water. He also uses said lighter to set fire to some spilled gasoline, which sends the sheriff into the tank of sharks and gets himself trapped and subsequently eaten. Just as Sarah's diving cage is about to be lowered into the water, Nick swims onto the boat to save the day and puts a gun to Red, threatening to shoot him unless Dennis brings Sarah to safety. And Dennis does what any reasonable crime partner would do and just kills Red himself. Nick, for some reason, decides guns are useless now and doesn't shoot Dennis, instead tossing him overboard so he can swim straight to the cage and cut it from the pulley, and they both go underwater. I guess the screenwriters started to give up at this point, as Dennis somehow gets his leg stuck on the cage, allowing a shark to come up and eat him right as Sarah takes a momentary break from drowning to give him the middle finger. Priorities, am I right? The dog, who is miraculously still alive, not that I want him to die, because, you know, it's a dog, but he brings Nick the power head that got lost in the scuffle, and Nick uses it to kill the great white right in the nick of time before it can eat Sarah. And since Nick saved Sarah, that automatically means they're a couple now, despite having no connection and interacting with each other maybe twice during the entire movie. And as the camera pans out over the water, another shark jumps out of the water towards the screen because, whoa, last second 3D jump scare. You know, I have to admit, I find shark movies really fascinating, and even the bad ones enjoyable to an extent. Since both I and my dad have extensively studied sharks, it's become practically tradition since I was a kid anytime we'd get a new shark movie to watch it and laugh at how all sorts of terrible it is. But that being said, it still doesn't excuse the many problems this movie has. The cast, of course, has to have their own stereotypical quirks, and that makes it difficult to take them seriously as characters, and as a result, I find myself actually rooting for the sharks to eat them because this film is just so cheesy and cliche, it's almost painful to watch at certain parts. This likely isn't the reactions the filmmakers intended, same as when I laughed in the middle of the theater when I first saw this movie when the sheriff began explaining their evil plan just because of its sheer idiocy. This film is also far too set on its PG-13 rating. This is a shark movie. Most of the cast gets brutally eaten, and yet there's hardly any violence or gore that's expected in a shark attack movie. Most of it happens out of view, underwater, or it cuts away at the last second. I just want some good old blood and gore, damn it. Is that really too much to ask for? On a more positive note, I do really like that they used more practical effects in this movie with the use of animatronic sharks rather than doing full CGI, which is commonly done in B-rated shark movies. And because of this, oftentimes in movies, the sharks look absolutely atrocious and not menacing at all, so good on them for that. This is also the first shark movie I've seen to feature so many different species of sharks, some of which haven't even made an appearance in a movie up until now, making it rather unique in that way to provide some variety. My favorite is the scene with the cookie cutter sharks, which haven't been seen in any film previously because on average they don't get any longer than someone's forearm. And while certainly not the most realistic scene, as with much of the movie, I do have to give them points for originality. We take away all the annoying stereotypes, ridiculous plot conveniences, and cliche tropes, we'd be left with maybe 10 minutes of screen time, tops. It feels odd to say to make the movie more realistic, but I mean, that is a significant issue. I'd be more open to suspension of disbelief if this was more of a B movie that didn't take itself so seriously, but that isn't the case here. It's like they really wanted to make a good movie, but didn't want to put in the effort in the script to do so. And especially, they shouldn't be hesitating on the gore, even if it means an R rating. Some of the best parts of shark movies are the gruesome shark attacks, even in an excellent film like Jaws. The rest of the movie is good, sure, but it's all building up to the climax of a character becoming a meal, especially when it happens to a character that we actually like, that has more than a cliche personality and some actual character development. So I feel like I should say more than just rewrite the entire damn thing, but there's too many problems. The plot is bad, the characters are bad, there's hardly any redeeming qualities within the film itself. Just throw the whole movie away and try again. So because of this, I will give Shark Night 3D my personal rating of 3 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and if you have any suggestions for movies I should discuss and review in the future. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe if you have not already. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Bye!